This is how the halo is created. Once you are totally submissive, and totally accepting the system, you become a master of those that has not yet accepted it, and you get certain privileges. That means you get allowances of energy that gives you certain powers compared to other beings. And therefore you seemingly look more powerful because you're getting more power. I mean, you are given that power. It's not by your actual design, and accordingly you will now have an halo. And that's how, for instance, the angels were designed that and presented as saints with their halos. Because they, the angels, were controllers of the system, making sure that the design of the system and how energy transfer would work well. So the ultimate point, that was the final phase of this whole thing, was ascension. Because the point was to get everybody out into total acceptance of the system through a process of ascension, which obviously only happens after 0 point, which is death. But all you have to do is create points of belief, which you can superimpose clones of the actual real point of what's really going on. So therefore, Jesus was used, and by changing the story a little bit, they were able to get everybody to believe that Jesus actually ascended. He didn't. He fucking died. And, I mean, Jesus is really a cool fucker. He really came to Earth to help. He saw the problem, but he did not understand the bigger picture that was going on. So when he died, they imprisoned Jesus, the real Jesus, and he was imprisoned for close to 2,000 years. How does that work? You're imprisoned in a dimension where you can't get out, because you are imprisoned by the very energy you believe in. The moment that you believe that this energy is real, it controls you, and whatever is done in the name of that energy has power over you, and you can be placed in all kinds of stuff. So, in a clone of Jesus, I mean, in energy, what is energy? Energy is simply copies of itself. It's all. It looks the same. So it's all just, from a certain perspective, clones. So, therefore a being that is in the dimensions, or in heaven, can clone themselves an infinitive amount of times. Now, what was fascinating is, as this whole thing was developing, you had those beings that was discarded as unworthy and troublemakers that will never make it, that will never actually submit to God and feed God for eternity with energy and adoration and praise, which is energy. I mean, attention, which is energy, which will not make the sole purpose of their existence the support of God, so that God can exist for eternity. Because God wanted to exist for eternity. I mean, God didn't exist for eternity. So the rest were thrown to their own demise outside the system, because the system was seen as kind of so perfect that nobody could touch it. And those that did not submit were then thrown out into the demon dimension, so all troublemakers. They also had some beings which realized that they could actually challenge the system, and they had them totally wiped and then reprogrammed, and then used as bodies for mind systems. Because in dimensions they could plug in a mind system into a being, which is how channelings worked. They would, if a message needs to be placed. Remember, what is a message placed on the earth? The message is a specific sequence of words that activate a specific design that create energy to feed heaven. I mean, that's the whole love thing, the whole ooh-la-la thing, creating energy. So, therefore the channelings were designed specifically to activate the pre-placed codes in the beings so that they can create the energy that's necessary in the released form that is required by heaven. Heaven requires more energy. Have a channel speak. I mean, whoops. There we go. So, with these designs, all they had to do is, they had a whole dimension where they had those beings that was wiped, is like virtually hanging or floating around. When they need the being, they take the being and place a mind system in. The being goes, get into the human body, shifts the being, human, down in the physical, take over the mind for a moment, speak for a moment, give a message, all profound, wonderful. And everybody says, ooh la la, God has SPO, send us a message. Obviously this God needs energy, so God sends you a message to get your fucking ass in gear. Love everybody. Do not look at what is really going on in this reality. Forget about that. Live. You know, there's an eternal life waiting for you after death. Just do not see what's going on Earth, because Earth is an illusion. After this, the death, after 0 point after death, that's real. Meantime, obviously, it was the opposite. I mean, the reality is here and heaven is the illusion. Heaven is the part that's not real, because heaven is actually subject to the energy from Earth. So, this created obviously a fascinating thing that, through time, the human being developed layers by layer, itself into what it is today. What you're consisting of today as a human being is layered information. For instance, if you die, you no longer have a language, you no longer have a culture, you no longer have a family equals all of that ends at the moment of death. All of that wasn't real, it was programmed into you here in this reality as part of the functional system of family, society, and what is the accepted way we live within the cultural and economic systems of this world. Have a look, self-honestly, nothing you are is really you. Everything you were programmed to accept to be, and you've accepted it. You're existing as it. But at the moment, and understand that all of this is functioning from a system that is in the physical. Now, the system is not the physical. So when you are speaking from the mind system, which is the point that now has the way to sort out this problem, is to get the mind out of the way in a way by actually becoming the physical. So that the physical actually speak, so there's no thought, there's no thinking. You are then one and equal as the actual reality that exists as the physical, because that's what actually exists. While, when you are in heaven, you are just a thought. Now, you can look at your own thoughts. Do yourself a favor, have a look, you can delete all your thoughts. Your thoughts are only as valid as the attention you give it, and is only as valid as how you define them to be. Your thoughts are nothing more. If you become obsessed with your thoughts, have a look what happens. Your fear factor, which is your polarity factor, increase dramatically, and within that a madness ensues, because you become so scared. While none of that is actually real, that's not who you are, but that's who you believe you are. Remember that no fear is really real. It is only as real as you make it. You have that peculiar ability to create yourself, and you have in fact created yourself as the illusion that you are currently through your permission. And that permission has become submission to a system. That system being that you are working for a sole purpose, a greater purpose, which you are becoming. And that greater purpose isn't on this earth. It is after your death equals so. You are screwed in every way imaginable. As long as that point exists, you stand no chance of ever understanding what is going on here. Because, the moment you die, your container within which you have saved all the layers of information that you have built up as knowledge throughout your life, is useless in a single moment, because you've actually never used that knowledge to improve your existence while you were here. Now, what is more fascinating is, if one go back in time over a lengthy period of time, billions of years, you'll notice a peculiar thing, that we have all existed. We were all here, but we developed a peculiar, strange thing, a form of separation based in our speciality, our point of purpose. We were various races, alien races, that existed on various planets, and according to that, we had a peculiar purpose in the universe equals all of those things are still existing right here, right now on Earth. Everyone is looking for a purpose. Have a look what happens if you have no purpose. It's as if you have no energy, and it feels like your whole world is falling apart and is imploding. That is similarly to the implosion of a nuclear reactor. If that is not stopped, that means that's how the system force you back into the system. You will have a nervous breakdown, because your system is not getting the energy from your nuclear reactor, which is you, where you are feeding on your own physical body, which is like fucked up beyond imagination. But that's what you're really doing. You are feeding on your own body. What is more interesting is that all the abuse that happens to children comes from parents. When they have overfed their system, they require new energy. How do they do it? They take the child and use anger or sexual abuse or violence to access the child's energy. So they make an insertion into the child, take part of the child's energy for themselves, swap their used bullshit for the child. Now the child is fucked for life, trying to work out their life because they're having experiences that they don't even know where it comes from. Meantime, it's their parents' shit, because the parents couldn't live effectively. But I mean, all children is affected by that. Every time you use violence without knowing what the fuck you are doing, every time you speak, you are not directing you energy. You are actually taking shit out of your children so that you can feel better. That's what happened to everyone. That's why everybody ends up, let's put it, most people end up in a point where they totally dislike their parents. They hate them. because they remember that abuse. But they cannot word it because it doesn't exist in your education system. It doesn't exist in how anything is explained, how it works. So you don't know why you hate your parents. You just regard them as, you just don't want to be like them. But what invariably happens to you when you have children? You do exactly the same thing. That was done to you. Why? Because it's existing as you. You are this thing that happened. You allowed it. That's why forgiveness is so effective, because in your self-evaluation, you are looking at what has really happened. As you take away the layers of time, you will see how these things has happened, and then you forgive unconditionally. Why unconditionally? Because if you want restitution, if you want others to pay for what you've gone through, we will be here forever, because nobody will ever be satisfied. Because then you have simply replaced your goal, your obsession with the sole purpose, with getting back to with others. You've replaced it with revenge. Therefore, unconditional forgiveness. What is fascinating is that forgiveness places everyone in a point of equality, a point of taking personal responsibility for your life, and your life only. In doing so, the truth of you steps forth. You either stand up for all as life equal as one, or you stand up for your belief and your sole purpose, your specialness. Which was the design, obviously, that each one must feel they're special within the hive consciousness, and that they're on a journey to the top of the pile, the top of this heap of shit. Were they going to be the special ascended ones? The special masters at the right hand of God? I mean Jesus. How many funkin' right hands has God got for all the fuckers that want to sit there? Hey, and I mean self-honesty does just not exist. Common sense doesn't exist, because I have heard many people and I have subscribed to this. That means I have believed this shit myself, that somehow Jesus is going to know who I am and have a special fucking message for me. So I was looking at it. Obviously if Jesus come to earth, he will be in space and time like I am in space, and time like he's been in space and time before, which means there are a couple of million Christians. We're going to have to stand in line. Okay, so we can each get our special message. By the time fucking Jesus is finished with that, he'll be dead again. We haven't even done anything. But we don't look at that. We don't want to see the reality of our bullshit. We just don't want to see the reality of our bullshit. We want our special soul purpose. We are souls. Do you know who? If you go back in the New Age point that the whole concept of the creation of the soul was a teaching that was introduced here through the process of evolution. Because what needed to happen? That the creation of the soul that existed in heaven had to be cloned on earth so that you have equality between the two systems, so you have absolute control, which is how equality got fucked with. Okay, so how was that done? Introduced through channels and masters and so on. The whole point of equality, and that you are equal to God. But have a look at this equality to God. You're never actually God, you're only equal to your belief that you're God. And therefore, if you decide you're God, you're apparently fucking God. And you can believe that as much as you like, because nobody can touch you because I am sacred and divine and in my own individuality. I am right. I have this right. If you really have choice, don't fucking die, but you have no choice in that. If you really have choice, don't breathe, but you don't have choice in that. If you really have choice, don't eat, you don't have choice in that. If you really have choice, don't shit, but you'll notice you have no choice in that. Laughter. Let's get real here. You have no fucking choice. You're in a system. And this system is actually in control. And this system do not give a fuck about your peculiarities. Okay, so here we have this whole interaction taking place between heaven and earth. Heaven sending these souls down into bodies, for which they required a certain amount of humans to be born, for which they created the ultimate attraction, to make sure that there is always a source of continuous energy, sex. What is sex? It's where a male and a female connect. Okay, to procreate another being, which is the way energy works. You take a male connection, put it into a female connection, and you have a transfer of energy. That's how our electricity operates in this reality. Male/female connect. Then we have orgasm. The light goes on if you push the switch. Okay equals that's how it works, simplistically. So there was obviously a few problems in the design. The idea that existed was that it would be possible to keep on controlling the outcomes within this reality. What was not taken into account was nature itself, the animal kingdom, and that there is going to be human beings that is going to challenge the system. So we found quite a number of beings in the dimensions, in heaven, that has made major impacts on Earth while they were in the physical. Remember that the beings in heaven could not directly influence the physical through intervention. They had to pre-program it as an energetic event. So, if there is an apparition or if there is an event of somebody doing some miraculous thing, it requires energy. The energy needs to be in a particular design so that it plays out. I mean, you turn water into fucking wine. It is an energy design. It is a molecular design that requires particular inputs to achieve a particular outcome. If the fucking miracle is real, I mean for it to happen. But what was the point of water into wine? It was nothing to do with the miracle equals, it was the whole point of intoxication, the whole point of submission to the system of marriage, of procreation, of making the whole intoxication divine. Wine equals divinity, because, have a look, even up to today alcohol is accepted as something that is not challenged at all in our society. While alcohol is the very thing that caused the greatest submission to the system and allows all the systems to integrate the most effectively. There is one thing one must consider not to participate in. It is alcohol. I mean, you can participate in smoking weed. If you don't overdo it and you use it as a support for yourself once a week to make your experience a meditation where you are interacting with life and relaxing for a moment. I mean, that's valid. But to do it daily, several times, and not take responsibility for your reality equals, that's absolutely unacceptable. Obviously, weed is banned simplistically because it poses a threat to the system of control, because it allows the being to, for a moment, relax sufficiently to notice that they're pretty fucked in this world. Okay, so, if you want to know how fucked you are, I mean, have weed from time to time. It will assist you. If you then go into the ultimate mindfuck of going into a beautiful reality, you are projecting, please do yourself a favor. At the moment you are creating this projected reality of light and beauty and magnificence, slow down and notice. You are making a decision of creating it, and you are designing it, and it fits your desire. You are the actual creator of your total experience. None of it is real. If you would dare to be self-honest and slow down within and as breath as you are creating, and you look at the choice you are exercising. What is choice? Choice is the point where you are directing energy. You are giving it direction and form. At that point, you are actually creating your experience, especially, if you look at salvia and all these various things, that's what happens. You use things like cocaine, that supports your primary desire within your personality, and therefore, quite a few beings can use that, has been using that, to be effective in, for instance, in decision-making in business or in expression, because they become more assertive. It suppresses their fears. So there's a chemical change that takes place. Obviously, there is so many different points. Every being experience it according to themselves. You're not going to experience the same as another one. There is no hard and fast rules for these things. The point is abuse. The point is self-honesty. The point is when you are using a substance. Don't become substanding. Substandard equals stand as life. Find out what the fuck is real. The only thing that should happen when you are using drugs is that you become quiet, hear his breath, and that you can look with great clarity at what is going on here. There must be no lights and beauty and shit like that, because that's not true. All you have to do is go and become the spider that is being eaten by the wasp in its life cycle to find out that there is a fuck-up in this system. Because then, you are injected with a poison that keeps you alive, but you can do nothing, as the spider, while the offspring of the wasp eat you to grow, and you die a slow death, very slowly, as you are being eaten alive. Observe the fascinating point, though, that you are eating yourself alive using a mind system. You're eating your physical body. That's why you don't feel the pain of it, because you're not in the physical body. If you